The true cost of war. What it would actually cost you to field an army. Let's say you had an army. Not a country, not a flag, not a cause. Just you and the responsibility of raising, feeding, arming, and marching a fighting force. How far would your money actually get you? Most people picture war in terms of battles, generals, and dramatic turning points. But underneath every single one of those battles sits something far less dramatic and far more decisive. A spreadsheet. War, stripped down to its bones, is one of the most expensive things human beings have ever organized, and the actual cost breakdown reveals just how much of it has nothing to do with fighting at all. Let's start with the most basic unit of any army, the soldier. Before he fires a single shot, before she boards a single ship, a soldier already costs money simply by existing within your command. Recruitment and training form the first major expense. A modern soldier isn't handed a weapon and sent to the front line. Depending on the military and the role, basic training alone can run anywhere from several weeks to several months, during which the recruit produces essentially nothing in economic terms while still requiring housing, food, equipment, and instructor salaries. Estimates for training a single modern infantry soldier, factoring in instructor time, facilities, and equipment wear, commonly land somewhere in the range of tens of thousands of dollars before that soldier ever deploys anywhere. Train a specialist, a pilot, a submarine technician, someone operating genuinely advanced equipment, and that figure climbs into the hundreds of thousands, sometimes past $1 million before they've contributed a single hour of operational service. Then comes equipment, and this is where the numbers start climbing quickly. A modern soldier's personal gear, rifle, body armor, helmet, communications equipment, uniform, and field supplies typically totals somewhere between $5,000 and $20,000 per person, depending on how advanced the equipment is. Multiply that by an army of even modest size, say 50,000 soldiers, and personal equipment alone represents an investment measured in the hundreds of millions before you've built a single vehicle or fired a single artillery shell. Now let's talk about what actually moves an army. Logistics, the unglamorous machinery of supply that history's great commanders have consistently identified as more decisive than raw battlefield tactics. An army needs to eat every single day, regardless of whether it's fighting, marching, or simply waiting. Modern military ration costs vary, but feeding a single soldier adequately, including transportation and storage of that food, commonly runs somewhere in the range of $10 to $20 per day. That sounds modest until you multiply it across an entire deployed force over months or years. An army of 100,000 soldiers, fed for a single year, represents a food and logistics bill easily running into the hundreds of millions of dollars before a single weapon is fired. Transportation compounds this dramatically. Moving troops, equipment, fuel, and supplies across long distances requires vehicles, fuel, and maintenance, all of which come with their own steep price tags. A single modern military transport aircraft can cost well over $100 million to procure, and that's before factoring in fuel, which for large military aircraft can run into the tens of thousands of dollars per flight hour. Ground vehicles carry their own enormous costs. An armored vehicle capable of surviving modern battlefield conditions typically costs several million dollars per unit, and armies rarely field just one. Fuel itself deserves its own mention, because modern militaries are extraordinarily fuel-hungry organizations. A single modern main battle tank can consume several gallons of fuel per mile traveled. And when you're moving an entire mechanized force across hundreds of miles of contested territory, fuel costs alone can reach millions of dollars per week for a large-scale operation. Now let's move to the most expensive individual line item in almost any modern military budget: major weapons systems and technology. A single modern fighter jet, depending on the model and its level of technological sophistication, typically costs somewhere between $80 million and several $100 million per unit, and that's before factoring in pilot training, which itself can cost several $1 million per pilot by the time they're fully combat ready. A single guided missile, depending on its range and sophistication, can cost anywhere from a few $100,000 to several $1,000,000, and modern conflicts have demonstrated that these weapons get expended in quantities that would have seemed unimaginable in earlier eras of warfare. Naval power scales this even further. A single modern destroyer-class warship typically costs well over $1 billion to construct, and that figure climbs dramatically for larger vessels like aircraft carriers, which can run into the tens of billions of dollars once you factor in the full construction and outfitting process. And a warship isn't a one-time expense. Crewing, maintaining, and operating a single major warship for a year commonly costs tens of millions of dollars on its own, regardless of whether that ship ever fires a weapon. Let's pause here and actually look backward, because this pattern of enormous, unglamorous expense isn't a modern invention. It's remarkably consistent across the entirety of recorded military history, once you adjust for the technology and economy of each era. Consider a Roman legion at the height of the empire. A single legion numbered roughly 5,000 soldiers, and Roman military records, along with the writings of contemporary administrators, make clear that supplying a legion on campaign required an enormous, coordinated logistics operation: grain shipments, pack animals, engineers to build roads, and fortified camps every single night of a march, and a payroll system precise enough that soldiers rioted when payments were delayed, a clear signal that even 2,000 years ago, an army's loyalty was tied directly to whether the money actually arrived on schedule. Move forward to the medieval period, and the cost structure shifts again. Armor and weapons for a single heavily equipped knight represented an investment equivalent to years of an ordinary laborer's income. And maintaining war horses, which required specialized breeding, feeding, and years of training, added enormous additional expense on top of the human costs alone. This is part of why medieval warfare was often fought by relatively small professional forces, expensive but effective, supplemented by much larger but far cheaper and far less reliable levies of ordinary conscripted peasants, who brought numbers to a battlefield but rarely brought lasting military value. The gunpowder revolution, beginning in the 14th and 15th centuries, transformed this cost structure once again, and arguably more dramatically than any single development before or since. Cannons and firearms required specialized metalworking, ongoing production of gunpowder and ammunition, and increasingly skilled crews to operate effectively. This shifted warfare's expense away from purely individual equipment, a single knight's armor, and toward large-scale industrial production, an entire nation's capacity to mine, smelt, and manufacture. Nations that could organize this kind of industrial base, rather than simply nations with the bravest soldiers, increasingly began winning wars. Now, let's look at a specific, well-documented example that shows exactly how quickly these costs can spiral. The Napoleonic Wars, spanning roughly 2 decades at the start of the 19th century. France, under Napoleon, maintained armies numbering in the hundreds of thousands simultaneously across multiple fronts, an unprecedented logistical undertaking for the era. Financial historians studying this period note that the sheer scale of sustained military spending required France to repeatedly restructure its own currency and taxation system. And the financial strain of continuous warfare is considered by many economic historians to be one of the significant underlying pressures that eventually contributed to Napoleon's downfall. An army, it turns out, can be undefeated on the battlefield for years and still be slowly bankrupted into collapse by its own maintenance costs. The 20th century then took this pattern and multiplied it to a scale that's genuinely difficult to comprehend. The 2 world wars demonstrated, on an almost unimaginable level, how modern conflict could consume a meaningful share of an entire nation's total economic output. Whole civilian industries, car factories, textile mills, consumer good manufacturers were retooled almost overnight specifically for wartime production. Rationing became standard practice across entire populations. not because food had physically disappeared, but because so much of a nation's productive capacity had been redirected toward supplying its military that civilian consumption simply had to shrink to make room for it. This brings us to something that's easy to overlook in any straightforward cost breakdown: the wounded and the dead. Modern militaries carry substantial medical infrastructure specifically built around combat casualties: field hospitals, evacuation systems, long-term rehabilitation, and disability compensation for wounded veterans that, in many countries, continues for decades after a conflict formally ends. Historical analysis of major modern conflicts consistently shows that long-term veteran health care and disability payments can ultimately exceed the direct battlefield costs of the war itself, sometimes by a significant margin, stretching the financial burden of a conflict across generations long after the fighting has actually stopped. A war that lasts 4 years on the battlefield can easily cost a nation more, in total financial terms, across the following 40 years than it cost during the fighting itself. There's also a cost category that rarely makes it into any straightforward military budget at all: opportunity cost, meaning everything a country, or in our hypothetical scenario, you personally could have built instead. Every dollar spent on a fighter jet is a dollar not spent on a hospital, a school, or an infrastructure project. Economists studying the long-term effects of major wars have consistently found that the true economic cost of conflict extends well beyond direct military spending, into decades of delayed development, disrupted trade, and reduced productivity in the affected regions, effects that can genuinely outlast the immediate physical destruction of the war itself by a full generation or more. And there's one final layer worth mentioning: what war does to money itself. Throughout history, nations facing enormous, unexpected military expenses have repeatedly turned to the same shortcut: printing more currency or otherwise expanding the money supply to cover costs that ordinary taxation couldn't keep pace with. This pattern shows up again and again across completely different eras and completely different economic systems, and it consistently produces the same result: significant inflation, sometimes mild, sometimes catastrophic, that quietly spreads the true cost of a war across the entire civilian population, whether or not they ever went anywhere near a battlefield. So let's put a rough number on all of this, bringing it back to our original hypothetical. If you were building and fielding a moderately sized modern fighting force, say 50,000 personnel, with a reasonable mix of ground vehicles, air support, and sustained logistics for a single year of active operation, historical and contemporary military spending patterns suggest you'd be looking at a total cost somewhere in the range of several $billion. And that's before any of your equipment gets destroyed in actual combat, which, of course, in a real war, it inevitably would. Extend that conflict across multiple years, factor in casualties, equipment replacement, and the long tail of veteran care that follows for decades afterward, and the total real cost can easily climb several times higher than the number you'd calculate just by adding up salaries and hardware on day one. So what does all of this actually tell us, once you step back from the individual numbers and look at the pattern as a whole? Across every single era we've walked through, ancient, medieval, gunpowder, industrial, and modern, the same underlying truth keeps reappearing in slightly different clothing. The visible cost of war, the weapons, the dramatic technology, the generals and the battle plans, is almost always smaller than the invisible cost sitting underneath it. Feeding people, moving people, keeping people healthy, and eventually caring for the wounded survivors for decades afterward. Rebuilding, after the fact, everything that wasn't built during the years the economy spent supplying the fight instead. Armies don't actually run on courage or strategy alone. They run on sustained, reliable funding, delivered consistently for as long as the conflict continues, and often for decades after it technically ends. If you genuinely found yourself commanding an army, the battlefield itself would likely be the smallest part of your actual daily concern. The real, unglamorous challenge, the one that has decided the outcome of conflicts throughout the entirety of human history, would be far simpler and far less dramatic, making absolutely certain that tomorrow there was still enough money, enough food, and enough fuel to keep your force in the field for one more day. Because history has shown, again and again, across every century we have real records for, that wars are rarely lost purely on the battlefield. Far more often, they're lost in exactly the place you'd least expect to look, the ledger.